Sweetheart, I'm a foundational Black American.
We need to talk about the rise in Black American nationalism.
This is exactly why I'm speaking up as an immigrant, as an African.
Before we get this video started, I just want to clear a few things. I myself am a foundational Black American, FBA, with lineage on both sides of my family, my mother's and father's side coming from the Deep South, South Carolina, as well as Ohio in the Midwest. I myself coming from New York City, they moved up from the South to pursue a better life in New York City because of all the racism and intolerance that was going on. So now that I cleared the air on that, I'm going to have a totally impartial view on this topic. I'm going to give my feelings on this at the very end of the video. But first, let me talk about this. There is a man named Tariq Nasheed who I definitely rock with, and he has a lot of viewpoints on how Black Americans specifically built the country. And whether you agree or disagree with Tariq, you must admit that he has many points on why Black Americans should be revered and Black Americans should be honored for what they've done to build the United States. Because a lot of people, sometimes they come over and they say, well, you know, Blacks, they were enslaved, so they didn't really build it, but technically somebody built it. Somebody had to build it. For example, I work in tech. And if I'm the architect of a solution and then I hire a developer to build out the solution, can I truly say that I am the only sole person responsible for building the solution? Or was there a developer on my team who actually put the pieces together to get a working solution, right? So it kind of works in the same fashion. I want you guys to watch these clips that's coming up right now. Now, there are differing points of view on these clips. There's the FBA side in which FBAs are claiming, that, we're proud people and we've built this nation. And all we're asking for is a bit of respect. And that's the reason why we have a delineation movement, which is what's happening right now. And on the other side of the fence, you have some FBAs who are claiming that we should not be delineating. They may take a bit more of a Pan-African perspective on it. Or just in general, they feel that maybe Africans and others are being disrespected in the process. And then you have some Africans or non-FBA people in the video who tend to be people who mostly disagree with the movement, right? Because as Tariq Nasheed says, it's only lineage, it's based. There's no leader, it's lineage based. So go ahead and look at these videos, guys. I'm going to come back at the very end, so make sure you watch the entire video to the very end, and I'll give my thoughts on it.
Sweetheart, I'm a foundational Black American. Yeah, I'm blackity black. I'm so Black on my birth certificate, it has me listed as a Negro. Let me give you a little quick education. Because I know you believe you believe everything that the Democrats have been feeding you since birth. But let me give you a quick education. Did you know that it was the Democrats who were the party of slavery? It was the Democrats who were the party that stopped Lincoln from giving out the 40 acres and a mule to Black people, to the newly freed slaves. It was the Democrats who instituted Jim Crow. It was the Democrats, here, listen closely, that opposed every single amendment, every one, for Black people to be freed and to get any kind of civil rights. The Democrats were the ones who did that. But somehow or another, they managed to fool you. They managed to stick the banana in the tailpipe, and you fell for it. Most of us fell for it. That it's the Republicans that are the racists. No, sweetheart, it's the Democrats. Everything bad that has happened to our community lies at the feet of the Democrats. Actually read your real history and quit listening to these people. It's the Democrats.
So I had some white colleagues ask me what I thought about Trump actually segregating whites and blacks. And I actually told them straight up, like, honestly, I would love that. Now, they looked at me like I was crazy, and they almost spit up their almond milk. And I think they thought that maybe I was saying that out of hatred. But it really isn't about hatred, here's the thing. I'm not talking about their version of segregation. See, I'm talking about our version of righteous separation, spiritual sovereignty, and black sufficiency. See, the truth of it is that integration was never about freedom. It was finesse. It was a system's way of saying, let's stop them from succeeding independently so we can profit from their brilliance directly. It was about control. And so I want us to be very clear about this. You know, we were never separate but equal. So that's a lie. We were separate and excelling. We had our own schools. We had our own banks. We had our own businesses. And baby, we were thriving. Black Wall Street, they burned it. Rosewood, they bombed it. Wilmington, they overthrew it. Why? Because we were doing too well without them, and they couldn't handle that. And so that's the truth. They didn't really want segregation gone. They wanted control. This is why we know that integration was just repackage of chains. When we were separate, we actually were building and excelling. And when they saw that we could excel without them, then it was like, oh no, we got to take control and make sure that their labor is profiting us. So right around that time, they rolled out this whole standardized testing, ACT and SAT. Y'all remember that? They created this IQ ranking to measure their norms, not our brilliance. And then we were said we were behind when we really weren't. We were just building our own lane, not asking for theirs. See, I don't know about you all, but I'm kind of tired of the lies. It's very exhausting, you know, just the lies that continue to be promoted. And I want to talk about the melanin, because this whole thing that we're not smart enough, that we're not bright enough, is simply just a lie. And so, you know, all this testing that they're doing, and I have kids in school, and they're made to feel that they cannot achieve. And I have to remind them about their actual superpower, melanin. See, not just your skin tone, but in your brain, specifically neuromelanin, that rich dark pigment found in areas like the substantia nigra, which are critical for learning and memory and decision making and emotional regulation. See, if you don't know, then you won't know how to respond. But when you learn about the studies that have actually linked the neuromelanin to higher concentrations and how it's related to enhanced memory and processing and higher intelligence and faster reaction times, then you know why they have hidden this information for so long. Because when you have higher melanin, you have stronger brain resilience against degenerative diseases. So translation to that is melanin doesn't just make you glow, it makes you grow. So we know that it's not coincidental that people with more melanin have historically been creators, inventors, innovators across every discipline, while also being the most suppressed, because they know that the more melanin you have in your body and in your brain actually produces higher intelligence. So the Bible also says this too in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verses 7. It says he placed treasures in earthen vessels. What treasures? It was in us all along, right? So we have more melanin, and we know that people with less melanin, because it's a recessive gene and it's a mutation, lack the same level of intelligence, of many different benefits that come along with that. What's so interesting about it is that we're supposed to be looking at this as if it's something negative. But why is it negative when every other cultural group does this? Group economics. See, the truth of the matter is they have stolen from us so many different things, and yet we still survive. And so I don't want to offend, but I have to be blunt here. When we invented it, they patented it. When we built it, they banked on it. So everything we created, they made sure they benefited off of it. Just like Louis Latimer, he actually developed the light bulb, but Edison got all the glory for it. And this has been going on through history. We know that Granville T. Woods laid the foundation for trains. Corporations got the contracts. Dr. Patricia Bath revolutionized eye surgery. The system licensed the tech. Black music became white record labels, billion-dollar industries off of our talent. Every time we create, they capitalize. We are the genius, but they control the royalties. It's quite interesting, isn't it? So when we talk about the facts and segregation, I want to be very clear. It's not racist. We have to understand the dynamics of this. See, the black dollar actually is the fastest running dollar in America. So let's do the math here. And I think it's quite funny. Black people have spending power over 1.6 trillion. But guess what? That dollar stays in our community just for 6 hours. While the white community, their dollar stays in their community 17 days. And guess what? Asian communities, it stays in their community 20 days. Jewish communities over 3 weeks. Why? Because we're systemically disarmed from owning what we build. And this is no coinky dink. The scripture said this would happen. So now our dollar does the labor, but the system collects the check. And this is why I support segregation on our own terms. See, that 400 years of slavery is over. And when I say that I want us to be segregated, I don't mean oppressed. I mean organize. Let's build black banks again. Let's educate our babies on the truth, not whitewashed lies. And let's support black farmers, black techs, black healing, black brilliance. And no, it doesn't mean I hate white people. No, it means I finally love us enough to stop begging for scraps from a table we built but never welcomed to. See, the Bible told us about this, yet we hop, skip, and jump over the fact that Deuteronomy 28, 43, and 44 already said it. It says, the stranger shall rise above you high, and you shall come down low. They shall lend to you, but you shall not lend to them. And this is exactly what has been happening for 400 years plus years. We built houses, businesses, schools, and they took them and taxed them to death. But beloved, there's hope, because Deuteronomy 30:3 also says, and Yah will turn your captivity and have compassion upon you, and will return and gather you from all nations. So yes, I welcome segregation, because restoration is already in motion. And I want y'all to understand this. We are not asking for more. We're building. See, we were never given anything from you all. I'm not asking to sit at somebody's table anymore. See, I'm trying to go along with scripture and build my people, gather my people, not because they are more melanated, but because we need to know that we serve the Most High and that He's going to take care of us, because separation was never our curse. It was our covenant. And now it's our strategy. It says to come out from among them, be ye separated. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17. So this isn't about racism. It's about us reclaiming what is already ours.
Imagine if we only started shopping with each other and just keeping the money in a rotation amongst us.
I've been saying that Black Americans don't have allies for the longest, right? Now, this proves my point. Out there in Minnesota, a young Black mother was looking for a daycare to put her children. What do you know? The Somalis run a 24-hour daycare, but when she get there, they don't want to give her a tour. They don't want to service her. And she says,
I tried to send my child to one of the 24-hour daycare centers, because it was the only 24-hour daycare in Minnesota. The Somalis would not give me a tour. They did not want me to bring my kids to their daycare. It was because they was doing daycare fraud. Come to find out, another thing with them, they made it very clear their only agenda is to benefit the Somali community.
you know, most of these immigrants, they come here, they don't come here to ally with us Blacks. They don't come here to be our friends. They don't come here to service us. They don't come here to be around us. They come here to use America for whatever they can get out of it. That's something that we all have to remember, because that's what it is. You open a business here in America, then it's for everyone. You service everyone. You don't come to America to only service your own people. And that's one of the biggest issues that white Americans and Black Americans have with all immigrant groups right now in America. You guys come here and you don't even play by the rules, because before you had your own place, before you had your own little cities and towns, you had to come to our cities and towns. Guess what? You got all the services you need. So that's one of the biggest issues that Black Americans have with all immigrants. You guys come here, you think you're better than us. You don't treat us with any kind of respect. You don't respect our history. You don't respect our language. You don't respect our country. You don't respect us at all, but yet you expect us to respect you. You expect us to put our bodies on the line when ICE is chasing your ass down the street. No, sir, it's never happening again. Believe me, Black Americans do not have any allies, and we need to start marching and acting like it and voting and standing on that too.
We need to talk about the rise in Black American nationalism and the Black American nationalist to white supremacist pipeline. Yes, white supremacist. So firstly, we've seen the Jay Versace tweet that's been resurfacing, and in response, I've seen like quite a few Black Americans make videos about that and say that you can always tell an African apart from an African American. Y'all are not like us, etc., etc. And before I even get too deep into that, I really want to ask you guys, what is the purpose of making that distinction? Why are you guys fighting so hard to make this distinction in 2025? Don't tell me that is reparations, because that's a really stupid answer. And just to speak to that point, Africans are very diverse looking people. Yes, there are people you can look at them and tell they're African, just like you can look at some people and tell, oh, okay, that's a Black American person. But if you go and get Africans who were born and raised in America or who moved to America at a very young age, you probably would not be able to tell. Most of you cannot, because people can't tell with me. It's literally not until you say something or until somebody sees your last name that they're like, oh. And that honestly kind of brings me to my second point of this whole thing of Africans are cosplaying Black Americans. I don't really think you guys understand how silly you sound when you say this at times, but I think it really does speak to sometimes how Black Americans, when it comes to this particular subject, some of y'all can be a little bit narrow-minded in your thinking, because what do you mean we're cosplaying? If you're born and raised in a country, you're gonna have the mannerisms of people in that country. Especially if you're raised in a country like America, where things are typically just straight segregated by race. Like, let's be real. So it's like, you're going to have and adopt the mannerisms of the people, you know, in your community, which for a lot of people who are African but born in America, that's going to be Black American people. Like, hello. And thirdly, which I think is honestly probably the most egregious, is I saw a Black American woman on here who was trying to say that what? She said that Africans, Latinos, and immigrants are the new colonizers. That's quite literally the term that she used. She says that Black American people and she included white Americans. She said Black American people and white American people who've been here for hundreds of years, whose families have been here, who came over from Germany and Ireland, who built this country. They built this country, and now people are trying to come over here and force their customs on them, etc., etc. And I saw her in the comments literally liking comments saying white and Black Americans need to stick together. Like, do you see where it's not okay? Like, first of all, do you know what a colonizer really is? Like, let's not use that term lightly. Like, if you are claiming that your family has been here for all these hundreds of years and all this other stuff, girl, you should know the real history of colonization in this country, and you should know the real atrocity that it was, and not try to compare people who are literally coming over here peacefully to try to seek a better life for themselves, the new colonizers. That's very audacious and nasty. Immigration is not perfect. There's illegal immigrants who do terrible things, but that is not the overwhelming majority of people. So for you to be using that kind of rhetoric, especially as a Black woman in America, I have to say pause. Like, come on. So again, I really just say all that to say, like, really, what is the purpose of this FBA movement? Why is this beneficial? And again, don't tell me reparations either. Because what? You guys think that by separating yourselves from the rest of the diaspora in America, that you're going to go back to the white man and say, hey, okay, it's us. We're the ones that deserve and you think that he's going to give it to you? You're crazy. This goes for all Black people in the diaspora, period. If you're not ready to take your reparations by force, it's not happening, period. So again, just why are y'all doing this? What's the purpose? What's the agenda?
This whole foundational Black American conversation, what's the problem? I see my African brothers and sisters getting very offended by this, but I am struggling to understand why, because there is a difference. For example, our ancestors didn't build this bitch. Our ancestors weren't the ones who fought for equality for everyone in this country so that we could immigrate here, our moms, our dads, our grandparents. Oh, not to mention a lot of those fathers and mothers and grandparents and aunties are racist as hell. Like unambiguously anti-black, racist as all hell. My sisters and I had to beat that shit out of our Ethiopian parents with the quickness. But I can't deny that it was there. We are African Americans in the most literal way one can be. And they are Black Americans, built into the foundation of this country. So foundational Black American, I don't understand what the problem is. How does that negatively impact us? I can't think of one time that my Ethiopian American ass has been subjugated due to a Black American calling themselves foundational. I don't get it.
This is exactly why I'm speaking up as an immigrant, as an African, because I want Black people to become more protective of their culture, themselves, their power. I don't think Black people understand how powerful they are. I don't think you guys actually understand how magical and how strong you are. So me, on the outside looking in, because I did grow up on both worlds and I'm educated, I'm spiritually bound, I'm grounded, I'm centered. Black people are magical. You guys actually don't understand. My people, Igbo people, we went through Biafra, right? We fought our civil war and we're still not as powerful as you guys. What you've been up against, if you come from the spiritual realm and you actually believe in the magic that exists in this world, you understand that Black people are way more powerful than they give themselves credit for. And once they wake up and put some respect on their bloodline, you'll see things change. But what do I know? You know, I just be out here talking. I'm just a rapper. What do I know?
Okay, let's talk about this. First of all, I hate the term foundational Black American. It's killing me that y'all are throwing American on the back of Blackness, and I understand that it's considered necessary for like global conversations, but that's not really why we ever started identifying as Black in the first place. It kind of feels like spitting on our ancestors' ashes because niggas decided to identify as Black so that they didn't have to identify as African American, because we were like, American is taking it too far, and now y'all are like Black American, and it's really killing me. Like, what is that? I remember the first time I left the US and I had to tell people I was from America, and it literally hurt my spirit because I understood in that moment that people were homogenizing me with my oppressor, right? And that's something that itches me down to my bones when I travel, that people are homogenizing me with the imperialism, with the cruelty, with the shit of the people who have consistently oppressed my people for generations and generations and generations. Everything that my people stand for is not that, right? So this foundational Black American thing, killing me, one. But two, another thing that feels like spitting on our ancestors' ashes is acting like Blackness is only exclusive to us. Acting like Blackness is only exclusive to Black folks in the US is the antithesis of what Blackness was meant to be. Blackness is meant to be expansive, and there's a reason why the civil rights movement went on a global tour to expand the identity of Blackness and you know, say, I see your struggle over there, you going through that because you Black too. You know what I'm saying? You going through that because you Black too. There was a reason why people went and built all of these relationships and alliances, and not just to other Black people, but to brown people as well, to poor people as well, right? To people who were underrepresented, who were who had class why can't I get it out? who were impoverished under the system of classism. You know what I mean? People who were degraded under the system of classism. Like, the civil rights movement used Blackness as a unifier. And when we say things like, oh, Blackness is specific to us and it's meant for only Black people in the US, we are literally ignoring the history of our people and the reason why we were proud to be Black in the first place. We were proud to be Black in the first place because we recognized that this was a global issue, that what we were facing here and what we were dealing with in our communities and with our government wasn't unique to us, that imperialism wasn't unique to us, white supremacy wasn't unique to us, capitalism, bureaucracy, none of that was unique to us. You know what I'm saying? And that was what made Blackness such a loving home for our identities, right? For us to be able to say I'm black and I'm proud, was the unity that was innately interwoven into the term itself. So when I see things like this, it really does bother me. I would like y'all to know that, in fact, no, you don't have a monopoly on blackness. We do use blackness different in the context of the US, and I wish that other people globally would accept that, and they will one day, because I'm going to keep standing on it personally, and we're just going to keep standing on it. You know what I'm saying? Because we did cultivate the term. The term did come out of our community, so we get to use it how we like to fucking use it. And people need to accept that within the context of the US, we're using it as a race and an ethnicity, right? But no, that does not mean that we are saying we have a monopoly on blackness. And I think that that gets tangled up sometimes. So
Let me make the distinction or the delineation. I'm a foundational black American. My mama black, my daddy black. I did not come from any place other than here. I don't go to Jamaica and speak on what's happening in the grill. I do not go to Ghana and speak what's happening in Ghana. I do not go to Nigeria and talk about what's happening in Lagos because it's none of my business. It is not my place. When you come over here from the Caribbean, from Africa, from South America, whichever type of black that you are, you get an immigrant experience. You do not have 400 years of chattel slavery hanging over your head. You do not know anything about Jim Crow, and you do not understand what is happening to us directly. You catch a little bit of an incident here and there because you look like us. So I'm gonna need everybody who's not a foundational black American to stay the hell out of my conversation, understand it's not your place, and realize that we have things to do.
I don't know who this is going to piss off, and I frankly don't care. I am not African. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being African. I'm not saying that I have a fear of being African. I'm simply stating the fact that my people, my ancestors, have been in America for a very long time. I am a black American. I am not an African American. We don't even look the same. We just so happen to have black American features. We are all copper colored people. Yes, there are some light skinned Africans. Yes, there are some dark skinned Americans, but we are all not from the same place. And us recognizing that is not us being disrespectful to anyone's lineage, culture, ethnicity, or race. I have yet to see a black American be disrespectful, but I have seen Africans come on this app and be completely disgusting, threaten us, call us all out of our names simply because we are acknowledging the fact that we are all not from the same place. I don't understand why it upsets you so much or why it would bother you, but we are all not African. And there's nothing wrong with that.
So what you just saw is a slew of different opinions from FBAs and non-FBAs and everything in between. And I think the best way to depict exactly what's happening right now between foundational Black Americans and Africans or other Black people from other countries is to reference Germany, a country that I've lived in before, and sort of the ideology that's going on right now. You see, back in the World War II times, Germany had a very, very bad moniker of being a NAZI, if you know what I mean, country. And essentially, that's lived with them up to present day. Now, at a given point after the war ended, they wanted to delineate from that negative image of having that HIT man that was controlling everything in the country and pretty much brainwashing them to believe that they are superior to other people. And basically, if you talk to a German today, many of them have had family members who were murdered by the same HIT man, you know? So they're trying to delineate themselves from that negative stereotype, or which in many part was pretty much true back in the days. But unfortunately, they were the attackers as well as the victims at the time. So that's what they've done. And fast forward to today with this whole FBA movement, right? First and foremost, I understand Tariq 100% wholeheartedly that FBA is a lineage. It is not necessarily an organization. It is not a chapter. There is no leader. You are FBA by lineage. As I mentioned before, my family were responsible for helping to build the United States of America. All I know is the South. All I know is where my lineage comes from. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, I will say this. Africans, you have some Africans who have good intent, and you have some Africans who, what's the word I'm looking for? They may be a little jealous of what's happening. Let's talk about the the ones with the good intent. You know, a lot of Africans have stood by us side by side in many of the oppressions that we faced. I'm not going to say the entire group of Africans because Africa is a continent, but you do have many Africans who do support it, and they go through a lot of discrimination in the United States, outside of the United States, and so on. However, I'm going to say this, okay? This is just me speaking personally, and again, referring back to Germany. I've noticed something. Germany has a lot of Africans, many, many Africans. There's a lot of Black Americans here too, because they're stationed in the military, and they're often here for several years to fulfill their duties. But I've come across many, many Africans, and you guys won't believe the hatred I have received for being a Black American. As soon as I mention that I am a Black American, and I hate the term African American, not because of the word African, I just don't like it because it really doesn't categorize who we are, right? So foundational Black Americans is a more fitting term because we are the foundation of the country, but that's a whole nother argument. I noticed that oftentimes when I would mention I'm American, Black American, they will continue to say, well, what part of Africa are you from, right? Because brother, you are Black, and that means you are from Africa. So the very first thing I would ask is, okay, we live in Germany. Is a French the same as a German? Is an Italian the same as a Portuguese? So you can't really say that Blacks are the same across the board. The only similarities that we have is some of the phenotype and the skin color in many cases, because you have light-skinned Africans, caramel complexion, you have dark-skinned Africans, you have Africans of all shades, and you even have some Africans who can darn near pass as Black American, especially East Africans. So this is something that I really hated, right? Every single time they would approach, oh, you are African. But yet, whenever an American does something bad, like shooting up the hood or something like that, oh, that's how those Black Americans are. I'll tell you about another story. And Africans, I want you to listen. Because again, I'm being impartial. I'm just telling you of my personal experience. So I went on a trip to Sicily, Italy, with a few people. And, because I love to travel to different places, right? I even plan on traveling to Africa one day. And while I was there, I was walking around with some people. Some of them were Sicilian and some of them were Black folks. And I was walking down the street and I noticed that there were a group of Africans walking down the street. And I kid you not, I don't know why this happened because I do, follow some of Tariq's stuff, and I agree with most stuff. But these Africans, as soon as they saw me, they said, "Oh, here comes the Akata," something along those lines. I heard the word Akata. Okay, they were speaking. I don't know if they were Nigerian or from Ghana. I don't know where they were from, but I heard the word Akata. So the very first thing I said is, "Oh, so you hate Black Americans, huh? You hating on us? That's what you're doing. You hating on us, right?" And it was like three of them, they outnumbered me. All right, they could have did me in for real, but I didn't cower because I'm not a coward. All right, so I said straight up, "Hey, why you hating on us?" And they said nothing. They just kind of ran away with their tail tucked between their legs. That's how they handled it. So there is a little bit of hatred. And I think the reason why they said it is because I was with a few chicks, and they probably were hating on the situation, but you know how that gets sometimes. But at the end of the day, we do get a little bit of hatred, but that's not to say that we don't have African brothers and sisters who love us and support us. I've come across many Africans from all parts of the continent who show nothing but love and solidarity with FBA, with Black Americans. So, I can understand 100% wholeheartedly how Africans feel about this whole delineation movement. But now let's talk about the FBA side, because a lot of people pretty much want to dump on FBA and say, well, FBA, they're Black nationalists. You heard that one girl say, well, they're the Black nationalists. First and foremost, this is just my opinion, and I think many would agree with me. You can't really be a Black nationalist, because to be a nationalist, you have to be in a position where you run the country, where you essentially control all the resources and the areas of activity within a country. So you can't really say black nationalists. I mean, unless she's trying to coin the term to say, well, you're saying you're black American and America refers to nationality. Then I can understand what she's trying to say. But in most cases, when people refer to nationalists, they're referring to some form of white tea supremacy or, black supremacy or which doesn't exist or some other form, right? So, again, these people, they just throw around jargon and terms and they don't really know what they're saying half the time. But with the FBA movement, here's the case in point. I think that right now, people were not prepared for the FBA movement to get as much traction as it did over the last, 4 or 5 years. I mean, probably even longer than that, but it took off roughly around 4 or 5 years ago. And it's gotten a lot of traction to the point where even Tucker Carlson mentioned us in his podcast. And again, I don't like to judge our success based on just one news reporter, but essentially, that's what happened. It's gaining traction. And again, I've got nothing but love and respect for Africans or non-FBA people. It's not about that. For me, it's about having the recognition of what my ancestors had done in the United States of America. Because it's true, there was no United States of America until, FBAs built it. Sure, white tea people were the architects. They pretty much, and of course, they were also black architects, but in general, they were the architects who said, you better get to work and do this. And our people built the country and allowed the lane for Africans to come in. And Africans helped to make the country partially better, okay, especially those that were in alignment with us. They helped to build, part of the, healthcare system that was lacking in many regards, when it comes to, the service industry around barbering and around, driving Uber or different things. They helped both in professional cases of doctors, lawyers, but also they helped when it comes to the blue collar work as well. So there's something to be said from both sides of the fence. There's not one side that's better than the next. Black Americans just want the recognition that they deserve. And many whites, believe it or not, many white people, white tea people specifically, a lot of them agree with blacks on this because they understand that blacks have been around for over 250 years in the country and they have solidified their stance in American culture. And it's true. Me personally, as I travel the world, when people talk about American culture, 8 times out of 10, black culture will be brought up in the conversation. The very first thing you'll hear a person say about America usually is the music, the food, the culture, the style of dress. A lot of that comes from FBA culture, right? Africans have a great culture as well that come from their homeland, right? And a lot of FBAs who are Pan-Africanists, they tend to respect and love that culture as well. And I have respect for that culture too. I'm not a Pan-Africanist. I do believe that there should be some pride in one's own culture, right? That's why I'm not the biggest fan of, well, you should go and, a certain group should just allow another group to just come into a country without going through the legal paperwork. Otherwise, it would be ramifications within specific neighborhoods or towns or districts. So in general, that's kind of like where I stand on that. I stand on the position that if you are new to the United States, if you're an immigrant, especially that of black skin, it's very important that you understand the contributions, both present day and historically, that Black Americans have brought to the table. As well as us Black Americans, we should also respect those Africans who come into the country and they respect our culture and they're willing to stand toe to toe with us and side by side with us to make the nation just in general better, right? Because when Donald Trump talks about make America great again, let's keep it honest and keep it real here. It's not just with white tea, it's also with black people, right? Because America is everything. America is white, black, and people say immigrants. And it's, truth be told, present day America is inclusive of immigrants as well and their contributions to the country. right? See, like I told you at the top of this video, I'm going to be impartial. Somewhere along the line, somebody's feelings got hurt by something I said, whether it's FBA or non-FBA. Someone's feelings got hurt. That's okay. That's cool. You can disagree with me. But at the end of the day, my position is if I go to someone else's country, let's say I go to France or let's say Japan. Let's switch it up a little bit. I go to Japan and I go there talking about, the black Japanese people because they exist. The black Japanese people here, I don't understand why they don't claim blackness, because they're black and blah, 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 blah. These people may claim to some degree black, but at the end of the day, they're going to identify as black Japanese because they contribute to the culture of that country. Even though Japan is mostly a homogenous country, they have a group within that country and they're still respected and honored as being Japanese people. Look it up. Look it up. They're still recognized as being Japanese people despite them having a different appearance. I don't understand this whole hatred between both sides. My perspective is this. FBA, Foundational Black Americans, whatever you want to call us, Negroes, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we built the United States of America. Africans were brought over because of our contributions. They helped to build the country even stronger. Those Africans who stand side by side with foundational Black Americans often find that they have a much better understanding of Black history and Black culture in the country. And for the white viewers out there who are listening to this, I'm sure you're probably confused by what's going on right now. But I would liken this to, let's say, for example, a group of Europeans came over, and these Europeans said, well, I don't understand this whole America strong and build America, make it great again, when Europeans were the ones who pretty much contributed to your culture. And we're the reason why your culture exists. I think that most of you watching who are non-Black will probably say, no, this country is my country and my culture is in this country and you have to respect it if you come over. And those Europeans cannot get upset about it because it is a different country. So when I break it down like this, hopefully it makes perfect sense to everyone here, FBAs and non-FBAs alike. I want everyone to get along. I'm sure that we can all sit down at a table together and work things out, because only through solidarity can we go further and be stronger. Guys, make sure you like this video if you like this content. I try to keep it as impartial, but still keep it real because it's important. This is the name of the show here is Reality Check Report. So you got to be honest and upfront and real without being disrespectful, right? Make sure you like the video, subscribe to this channel. YouTube thinks that you'll like this one right here. Go ahead and give that a click, and I'll see you on the next one.